About 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Within a few minutes, you'll see my left hand start to tremble. I was having trouble finding the funny in Parkinson's. So I went to YouTube, as you do, and typed in funny Parkinson's. I got a comedian who was diagnosed at the age of 50, and she started listing things that you could do better if you had a tremor in your hand. I thought, well, that's the right attitude. So I came up with my own list. Would you like to hear the list?
Yeah.
I could be a bartender. Specializing in James Bond martinis. Shake and not stir, you James Bond fans. What else? I could work in a snow globe factory. Check to make sure the snow still falls down. What else? I could be a cook, specializing in shake and bake. I could be a restaurant critic. For those restaurants that serve thick soups, potato soups, peanut soup, carrot soup, it falls off the spoon when I'm trying to eat it. It is not thick enough. I could work at a landscape designer, spreading fertilizer, grass seed, salt in the winter. I could work at a morgue. Every morning I'd go in, shake all the bodies, make sure they're still dead. That's a word I can see. Let's change pace. I've been married 51 years. Thank you. So when you've been married that long, people start asking you for advice. So I'd like to offer 3 tips. Permapress, eggs, and iron. So permapress. The tip is, I'll get to the tips later. Permapress, this is for guys, when you've been in a relationship for a while and it's starting to get serious, she will test you. Now, guys test each other a different way from the way women test guys. Guys test each other with physical competition, trash talk. Women test guys with psychological torture. So my husband got a job interview with IBM. We were dating. My boyfriend then, we were dating. He had 3 nice dress shirts. And I said, let me just touch them up for you so they'll be nice and crisp for your interview. They were permapress. For those of you who don't know what permapress is, or think it's just a setting on an iron or a dryer, it's polyester. You iron it at a lower temperature than cotton. You've already figured it out. I was used to ironing cotton. I had put the iron in the back of the shirt, 2 of the shirts, before I realized what I was doing, and stopped. And he said, it's all right. I just won't take off my jacket. He got the job. We got married 6 months later. So eggs. So the tip is, figure out what the other person wants from you. The first time I made breakfast for my husband, I burned the toast, burned the bacon, scorched the coffee. And he said, these are the best scrambled eggs I have ever had. They are better than my mother's, and don't you ever tell her I said so. And then he taught me to cook. So iron. The tip is, figure out what gifts you can give each other that delight the other person. So early in our marriage, my husband gave me an iron for Christmas. Uh-oh. It's okay. I know guys like to give tools. I know he'd done a lot of research to make sure it was a really nice iron. But I was confused. I said, but I have an iron. And he said, your iron doesn't work. Obviously, he'd been ironing more recently than I had. And he never bought me another appliance for Christmas. So the next 3 tips are bullets, smoke, and rocks. So bullets. The tip is, if you have a hobby, something you're passionate about, share it with your partner. So when we were first married, my husband was stationed at an army base in Oklahoma. Came home one day, he said, "You never shot a gun, have you?" And I said, "No, I've never shot a gun. Would you like to?" "Oh, sure, that sounds like fun." So we went to the gun range. First we went to the rifle range, and he said, "Well, normally I would start you out on rifles because they're easier to shoot. But these are heavy. And as you are 7 months pregnant, you have to lie on your stomach. We can't do that. So let's go to the pistol range." So we went to the pistol range, loaded the gun up for me, got a scope so he could see what I was doing, showed me where the target was, showed me how to look through the sight, showed me how to pull the trigger. Bang. I said, "Okay, so that bullet went wild. I have no idea. It didn't make the target. I have no idea where it went." "All right. Hope no one's nearby." So he said, "This time, hold your breath, let it out halfway, and just squeeze the trigger gently." "Okay. Bullseye." "Good, do that again." "Bullseye." "Good, do that again." Bullseye. An entire box of bullets, nothing but bullseyes. I said, "I will not have a gun in my house, because if I aim at somebody, I will kill them." He still shoots squirrels off the back porch. I've not picked up a gun since, because why would I ruin a perfect record? Smoke. So the tip is, if you're learning something new, share that new thing with your partner. So we lived in Argentina. My husband came home one day and he said, "Did you know you could learn to fly in Argentina for half what it costs in the United States? I've always wanted to learn how to fly." I don't know about you all, but I grew up on Sky King. Anyone in the audience know what Sky King is? The TV show Sky King? Yes. Right. Show in the 50s. Bush pilot out west. His niece Penny was often on the show. And there was one episode I remember clearly. Sky King has a heart attack. Penny has to land the plane. The air traffic controllers talk her in. So I said to my husband, "It's okay if you learn how to fly. I have to learn how to land." So he said, "Well, actually, landing is the last thing you learn. So you might as well get your license too." So we both took lessons. So one day I was doing touch and goes, which is take off, land, take off, land, take off, an exercise you do over and over again just to practice taking off and landing. And my instructor sat down for a soda for a while, and he said, "Why don't you take it up, do a 360, come back around." Now this is a solo, very scary thing when you're learning how to fly alone for the first time. Instructor stays on the ground. So I said, "Sure." So he checked the oil, I checked the gas. I take off down the runway. Smoke is pouring out of my engine. There are trees at the end of the runway. I can't stop before I hit the trees. So I look down at the instruments. The engine is not overheating, so I decided to take off and land on the other side of the trees. There are fences and cows and power lines on the other side of the trees, so I can't land. But my engine is still not overheating, so I do the 360 and land on the ground. The instructor had left the oil cap loose. It was smoke burning off, pouring out of my engine. So I was on the ground for an hour till the engine cooled off and I could take off again. What I didn't know is that he had told my husband that morning that he was going to be letting me do a solo. He was on the ground watching me take off with smoke pouring out of my engine. As it happens, we both got our licenses 2 months later. So, bullets, smoke, rocks. So, for our 49th wedding anniversary, we went to Hawaii. By then, I knew that I had osteoporosis. I finishing up a cancer journey, 3 years by that time, and now a 5-year survivor. But by the time we went to Hawaii, I also knew I had osteoporosis. My bones would break easily. I had Parkinson's, so my balance was not good. But we were driving around and we saw this beautiful waterfall with a pond at the bottom of the waterfall. And I'd always wanted to swim under a waterfall. Just imagine myself in those travel brochures swimming under a waterfall. So I told him, so we got out of the car, I said, I want to go swimming. So I walked down the slippery rocks to the pond. said, I'm going to stay on the bank. Swam around, walked back up the slippery rocks. Turns out, he told me later, he said, I lost 5 years of my life watching you walk down those rocks. And that's why we've been married 51 years. I have one more story. I'd like to change it up from marriage to parenting. It's about Santa Claus. So when our son was 7, we lived in Argentina for a year. And I went to Spanish lessons one day, and my Spanish teacher said, so your son's 7, right? And I said, yeah, he's 7. He just turned 7. She said, well, right now, back home, all of his friends are learning about Santa Claus from their older brothers and sisters. You have to tell him, or when he gets back home and finds out, he will be embarrassed because everybody else already knows. Okay. So I tell my son about Santa Claus, and he says, I don't believe you. Now, at this point, I could hardly say, well, have I ever lied to you before? So he comes up with a test. He says, I have noticed that in Argentina there are no candy canes. And I always have candy canes in my stocking on Christmas morning. So if there are no candy canes in my stocking, I will know that you are right. Now, I don't know what I was thinking. I suppose I just didn't want to let go of my son's childhood for one more year. So I tried to make candy canes. There was no candy thermometer. There was no food coloring. I boiled beets to try and get red food coloring. And I used the crack test to try and get hard candy. And I hung those yellow and beet-colored candy canes on the Christmas tree. And my son came out and he said, okay, I believe you. Thank you very much. I'm Carol Covin.